5 years ago, I caught my fiancée in bed with my adopted brother the night before our wedding. She looked me straight in the eyes and said, "You were never the man I wanted to marry." He was. That was the moment I walked away from all of them. I started over, rebuilt my life from nothing, and eventually built a successful business. I thought that chapter of my life was over. Then, just days before my new wedding, the past came back knocking. To explain what happened, I have to start at the beginning. It was 9:40 on a Wednesday night, just 2 weeks before my wedding. I was sitting in the back office of my warehouse, finishing purchase orders for a hotel chain contract in Seattle, when my phone buzzed on the metal desk. The number was unfamiliar, with a Portland area code. These days, unknown numbers usually mean one of three things: scammers, debt collectors, or someone you've blocked everywhere else. The message slowly appeared on my screen. "Ryan, it's me. I saw your engagement announcement in the business magazine. We need to talk before you make another mistake. Please, this is important." The room suddenly felt much smaller. I didn't need to read it twice to know who me was. It was Monica. For 5 years, I hadn't heard a single word from her. No calls, no emails, no messages through mutual friends, not even a LinkedIn request. Complete silence, and for good reason. Without even thinking, I took a screenshot. Years of running a business had taught me one thing: always keep evidence. People forget what they say, or pretend they never said it. I walked out into the warehouse and found my fiancée, Claire, in the coffee cupping lab, carefully tasting new samples. The moment she saw my face, she put down the tasting spoon. "What happened?" I handed her my phone. She read the message twice without showing much emotion. That's one of the things I love about Claire. She's a civil litigation attorney, so she approaches everything with logic instead of emotion. "Burner number," she said. "She knows you've blocked her, and she only found you because your engagement became public after that business magazine profile." She was right. The Pacific Northwest Business Magazine had recently featured my company, Northwest Coffee Systems. The article mentioned my engagement to Claire and included a photo of us from a charity event. Monica must have seen it and completely unraveled. "Are you going to reply?" Claire asked as she handed my phone back. "No," I said immediately. "Absolutely not. But I don't think this will be her last message." "It won't," Claire replied as she pulled out her own phone. "Screenshot everything. If she keeps escalating, we'll have everything we need for a restraining order." Then she looked at me and said something I still remember. "You don't owe her anything. Not an explanation. Not closure. Not even a conversation. You're the one in control here." I nodded, kissed her on the forehead, and said, "Understood." We went back to work. I finished the purchase orders, drove home, and tried to move on, but I kept checking my phone. 2 hours later, another message arrived. "I know you saw this. I know you read it. I deserve a chance to explain what really happened. 5 years is a long time. People change. I've changed. Please give me a chance to make this right before you make another commitment." I forwarded it to Claire. A few moments later, she replied, "She's building towards something bigger. Keep ignoring her. Let her show her full hand." That night, I barely slept. Not because I was tempted to answer her. Monica and I were over the moment I walked into our bedroom 5 years earlier and found her with my adopted brother, Tyler, the night before we were supposed to get married. I couldn't sleep because the memories kept replaying in my mind, dragging me back to the night that forced me to rebuild my entire life. 5 years earlier, Monica and I were supposed to get married on a Saturday in June. Everything had been planned. The ceremony was at a beautifully restored barn outside Seattle. We'd already paid the $8,200 venue deposit. My charcoal suit was hanging in the hotel closet. Monica's wedding dress was waiting at her parents' house. Both of our families had flown in, and around 140 guests were expected to attend. We had been together for 4 years. We were high school sweethearts who survived college, our first real jobs, and every challenge that usually tears young couples apart. I truly believed I knew her. The night before the wedding, I was staying at the Marriott downtown with my 5 groomsmen. We had a typical bachelor party, dinner at a steakhouse, drinks afterward, and a poker game back at the hotel. By 11 p.m., I was already in bed because I wanted to be well rested and ready for the biggest day of my life. I was just about to fall asleep when I suddenly remembered something. The backup wedding band was still sitting in the nightstand drawer at our apartment. The jeweler had given us a spare, and I'd completely forgotten about it. It didn't seem like a big deal. I figured I'd make a quick trip, grab the ring, and be back before anyone even noticed I was gone. I got dressed, left a note for my best man, and drove to our apartment. Using my key, I quietly let myself in a few minutes before 1 a.m. The lights were on. Both the living room and the bedroom were lit up. At first, I assumed Monica was still awake with her bridesmaids, finishing some last-minute wedding preparations. Then I walked into the living room. There were 2 wine glasses sitting on the coffee table. Only 2. That immediately felt strange. As I stood there, I heard voices coming from the bedroom. One was Monica's. The other belonged to a man. Then I heard her laugh. Not the laugh she used around everyone else. It was that soft, breathy laugh I had always believed was only meant for me. My stomach dropped. I slowly walked down the hallway. The bedroom door was slightly open. I pushed it wider. There they were, Monica and Tyler, my adopted brother, both completely naked in our bed. Neither of them rushed to cover themselves. Instead, they looked almost prepared for me to walk in. Tyler didn't even seem embarrassed. He slowly sat up with that same arrogant expression he'd always carried. Monica pulled the sheet over herself and immediately started crying, repeating my name over and over. Armed with that information, I decided to visit them again. This time, I had a plan. I wasn't going to let them dodge my questions or talk in circles. I needed clear answers, and I needed them to understand that I wasn't their personal ATM. I refused to spend years paying off a debt that I had never benefited from. When I arrived at their house again, everything looked just as normal as before. That only made me even more frustrated. It was like they were living in a world where nothing had happened, while my future was falling apart. While I was losing sleep over my financial future, my parents were acting like nothing had happened. When I walked into their house, they were sitting in the living room watching TV as if everything was perfectly normal. I took a deep breath, sat down across from them, and tried to stay calm. "All right, we need to talk." They both looked at me like they already knew what was coming. My dad muted the TV, and my mom let out a long sigh, almost like I was the one causing them an inconvenience. I laid everything out. I explained what I had learned about the loan, how much I should actually owe for my education, and how the extra $80,000 they borrowed had nothing to do with my college expenses. I could see my mom's expression hardening, while my dad sat there with his arms crossed, waiting for me to finish. Then I asked the question they had been avoiding. If Evan needed money so badly, why didn't you take out a loan in his name? My dad finally spoke. "You have to understand," he said, "your brother wasn't really in a position to qualify for a loan. His grades weren't good, and we didn't want him starting his adult life with that kind of burden." I stared at him in disbelief. "So instead, you decided to put that burden on me?" I struggled to keep my voice under control. "I worked my ass off to get into college. I earned a scholarship. I did everything right, and now I'm expected to pay for Evan's career?" My dad immediately became defensive. He insisted they had always tried to support both of us equally and never meant for things to end up this way. But it didn't feel equal. It felt like they were using me to clean up Evan's mess. I looked them both in the eye and said, "I'm not paying back the $80,000 you gave him." The color drained from my mom's face, and tears filled her eyes. Normally, that would have made me feel guilty. This time, it didn't. I knew exactly what she was doing. She was trying to make me feel selfish for refusing to sacrifice myself for the family. I wasn't falling for it anymore. She started giving the familiar speech about family, saying they only wanted Evan to have the same chance to succeed that I had. I fired back. "How is giving Evan $80,000 to spend on whatever he wanted the same as me using money to earn a college degree?" She didn't have an answer. Instead, she cried even harder. My dad stepped in to defend her, saying I was being too harsh and that I didn't understand the pressure they had been under. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "What about the pressure I'm under?" I asked. "I'm the one who's expected to spend years paying off a debt that isn't mine." They still didn't seem to understand. We argued for what felt like hours. They kept making excuses for what they had done, and I kept pointing out why those excuses didn't justify putting me $$80,000 deeper in debt. I was getting more frustrated by the minute, but I forced myself to stay calm. Finally, I changed my approach. If you don't repay that $$80,000, I'll have to take legal action. The room went silent. My dad's eyes widened. My mom looked like she was about to fall apart. They immediately begged me not to do anything that drastic, insisting it would tear the family apart. I was done letting them manipulate me with guilt. I don't want this, I said, but you either find a way to repay that money or I'll do whatever I have to do to protect myself. I'm not going to let this debt ruin my future because you chose Evan over me. Through her tears, my mom promised they'd try to come up with a solution. I could tell she was mostly saying it to calm me down. For the first time, though, my dad didn't argue. He just sat there in silence. I think he finally realized I meant every word. I stood up and headed for the door. As I walked outside, my mom called after me. Are you really going to go through with this? I turned around one last time. If that's what it takes, I said, then yes. Then I got in my car and drove away without looking back. As I drove home, I felt a mix of emotions. I was angry, of course, but underneath all that anger was sadness. I never wanted things to reach this point. They are my parents, and the last thing I ever imagined was threatening legal action against them. But what choice did they leave me? They had put me in an impossible situation, and now I had to find a way out of it. It hurt, but I knew I had to do what was right for me. By the time I got back to my apartment, I was completely drained. I collapsed onto the couch and stared at the ceiling, trying to make sense of everything that had happened. I knew this wasn't going to end anytime soon. There was going to be a long fight ahead, and I had no idea how it would turn out. Still, I knew I couldn't back down. My mind started racing through everything I needed to do next: how to protect myself legally, how to keep myself afloat financially, and how I was going to deal with this enormous debt hanging over my future. More than anything, I was just exhausted. I knew this wasn't going to be easy, but I never imagined it would be this difficult. Lying there, I realized something. This wasn't the end of the story. It was only the beginning. There was a long road ahead, and if I wanted to come out the other side, I would have to stay strong. At least now I finally understood what I was up against, and no matter what happened next, I wasn't backing down. After confronting my parents, I realized I couldn't sit around waiting for them to magically fix the mess they had created. If this whole situation had taught me anything, it was that taking responsibility wasn't exactly their strong suit. So I decided to take matters into my own hands. I needed to find out exactly what had happened with this loan. There was no way I was going to let $$80,000 of debt, money that had nothing to do with my education and had apparently gone toward funding Evan's lifestyle, destroy my future. The first thing I did was gather every piece of paperwork I could find. It wasn't exciting, but I was desperate. I dug through loan agreements, bank statements, tuition records, emails, anything that might help me understand what had happened. Honestly, I wasn't even sure what I was looking for. I just knew that the more information I had, the better. As I compared everything, I started noticing major inconsistencies. The tuition bills from my college showed one set of numbers, while the loan documents showed something completely different. The gap wasn't small. It was obvious that my parents had borrowed far more money than my education actually cost, and they had done it without ever telling me. Then I found something that made my stomach drop. Back when I turned 18, I had signed paperwork giving my parents access to my bank account. At the time, I didn't think twice about it. I was just a kid trying to figure out adulthood. I didn't understand student loans, banking, or financial paperwork. When my parents told me to sign the documents so they could help manage my money while I was in college, I trusted them completely. Looking back, that was one of the biggest mistakes I'd ever made. As I reviewed the documents, it became painfully clear that they had used that access to take out the extra $$80,000. They never asked for my permission. They simply did it. The more I uncovered, the more it felt like I had been manipulated. They knew I didn't fully understand what I was signing, and they took advantage of that trust to do what they wanted. Every new document made me angrier. But more than anger, I felt betrayed. These were the people who were supposed to protect me, guide me, and look out for my future. Instead, they had left me buried under a mountain of debt that I never agreed to. Even so, I refused to give up. If anything, discovering the truth only strengthened my determination to get out of this mess. I spent hours researching online, trying to learn whether there was any legal way to challenge what they had done or reverse part of the loan. I knew it was probably a long shot, but I had to try. Here's your passage rewritten into a more natural, human storytelling style while keeping *** all the important details and emotions *** intact. I expanded a few moments to make the story flow better without leaving out any key information. As I kept researching, I discovered that it was sometimes possible to challenge unauthorized financial transactions. The problem was that the process was complicated, and there were strict deadlines for filing a complaint. I had no idea whether too much time had already passed, but I wasn't ready to give up. I kept digging, hoping I'd find something that could help. The more I learned, the more I started thinking about Evan. While I was drowning in debt and scrambling to save my future, he had been living his life without a care in the world. I loved him because he was my brother, but I was tired of always cleaning up after him. For once, he needed to take responsibility for his own actions. I decided it was time to confront him directly. I was done letting my parents shield him from the consequences. I wanted to know exactly what happened to the money, and whether there was even the slightest chance he'd step up and help pay it back. I knew it was a long shot. Evan had never been the responsible one, but I had to try. One evening, I decided to wait for him. He usually didn't get home until after midnight, so I made myself a cup of coffee and sat alone in the kitchen. My parents had already gone to bed, making it the perfect opportunity to talk to him without anyone interrupting. When I finally heard his car pull into the driveway, my heart started pounding. I had no idea how this conversation was going to end, but I was ready to face it. He walked inside, and instead of confronting him immediately, I tried to keep things casual. I offered him some coffee, and we talked about random things, work, life, everyday stuff. I wanted to ease into the conversation instead of blindsiding him. He didn't seem suspicious at all. That made sense. Evan had always avoided conflict, so he probably assumed it was just a normal late-night chat. Eventually, I brought up the loan. I asked if he had any idea how much trouble I was in because of the money Mom and Dad had given him. He looked genuinely confused. "What are you talking about?" His reaction only made me more frustrated. So I explained everything. I told him about the $170,000 loan, how $80,000 of it had been taken out for him, and how I was the one legally responsible for paying it back. He just sat there, looking more confused by the second. Finally, he said, "What money? I didn't get $80,000. That was the moment I snapped. I raised my voice and explained that our parents had borrowed the money in my name and handed it over to him. After a long pause, his expression changed. "Oh, that. I thought they were just giving me money to help me out." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. He thought $80,000 was just some money. I asked him where it had all gone. He shrugged. "I don't know. I guess I spent it on trips, going out with friends, the usual." The usual? I was speechless. While I had been working part-time, earning scholarships, and carefully managing every dollar just to get through college, he had burned through $80,000 on vacations, nights out, and partying. And now I was expected to pay for it. I was furious. I told him he needed to pay the money back because it was his responsibility. Instead of showing even a little remorse, he looked at me like I was the unreasonable one. "It's not my fault Mom and Dad gave me the money," he said. "I didn't ask for it." That was when everything became crystal clear. He didn't feel guilty. He wasn't sorry. He didn't care that I was the one whose future had been put at risk. As far as he was concerned, it wasn't his problem. I had reached my limit. I told him I wasn't paying a single cent of the $80,000 that had been spent on him. If he refused to take responsibility, I'd have no choice but to pursue legal action to protect myself. He actually laughed. "Good luck with that," he said, as if the whole situation was some kind of joke. That was enough for me. I walked out of the kitchen without saying another word. By the time I got back to my apartment, I was overwhelmed with anger, disappointment, and exhaustion. How had my life turned into this? How had I ended up with parents who thought it was acceptable to use my name for a massive loan, and a brother who couldn't even admit he'd benefited from it? I collapsed onto my bed, completely drained. But no matter how tired I was, I couldn't sleep. The conversation kept replaying in my mind over and over. I kept wondering what my next move should be and how I was ever going to get out of this situation. One thing, however, had become perfectly clear. I was done playing nice. If my family thought they could keep walking all over me without consequences, they were about to find out how wrong they were. I wasn't backing down. I wasn't giving up. This fight was only just beginning. After the disaster of that conversation with Evan, I returned to my apartment knowing the next step would have to be even bigger. After everything that happened with Evan, I went back to my apartment hoping I could finally calm down. Instead, I just sat there feeling like I'd been punched in the gut. No matter how hard I tried to make sense of everything, the situation only seemed to get worse. My parents refused to accept responsibility. Evan acted like none of this was his problem. Meanwhile, I was the one left carrying $170,000 debt that never should have existed in the first place. For the first time in my life, I truly felt alone. It was like I was fighting a battle that no one else even acknowledged, and it was exhausting. Every conversation ended the same way, with excuses, denial, or someone trying to make me feel guilty for standing up for myself. But there was one thing I knew about myself. I wasn't the kind of person who would just roll over and let people take advantage of me. If my family honestly believed I was going to quietly spend years paying off $170,000 without putting up a fight, they had badly underestimated me. I realized I couldn't keep living in a constant state of reacting to whatever they did next. I needed to take control of the situation, set firm boundaries, and make it clear that I wasn't going to be manipulated anymore. Even so, I decided to give my parents one final opportunity to make things right. This would be their last chance. I was done listening to excuses. I was done being guilt-tripped. I was done pretending this could all be fixed with another empty promise. Either they found a way to correct what they had done, or I would be forced to take the next step. It was a risk, but at that point I felt like I had nothing left to lose. I called my parents and told them I was coming over. My mom answered the phone, and I could immediately hear the hesitation in her voice. She knew something was wrong, but I didn't explain anything. "We need to talk," I said. "I'll be there soon." Then I hung up. The drive to their house felt longer than usual. I kept replaying every conversation we'd already had, wondering if this one would be any different. Part of me hoped they'd finally admit what they'd done and offer a real solution. Another part of me already knew they probably wouldn't. When I walked through the front door, it was the exact same scene as before. They were sitting together in the living room watching television as if nothing had happened. Meanwhile, I hadn't slept properly in days because I couldn't stop thinking about the debt hanging over my future. I sat down across from them and took a deep breath. I knew if I walked in yelling, they'd immediately stop listening, so I forced myself to stay calm. "I want to explain this one last time," I said. I carefully laid out everything I'd discovered. I explained exactly how much my education had actually cost, how much should have been borrowed, and how the extra $80,000 had nothing to do with my college expenses. I reminded them that the money had been taken using my financial information and transferred for Evan's benefit without my informed consent. As expected, my mom became emotional almost immediately. She started saying they had never intended for things to get this bad. She insisted they were only trying to help Evan, and that they honestly believed I would be able to handle the debt. I'd heard those explanations before. They didn't make anything better. I gently interrupted her. "This isn't about helping Evan anymore," I said. "This is about the fact that you put me into a financial nightmare without telling me, and now you're expecting me to clean up the mess." The room fell quiet. Then I said what I'd come there to say. "If you don't repay the $$80,000 that was taken for Evan, I'll have to take legal action." Neither of them spoke. I continued. "I've spent days researching this. I understand far more about what happened than I did before. taking out far more money than my education required, using my financial access to move those funds, and handling everything without properly informing me are serious issues. If this can't be resolved privately, I'll have to protect myself through legal channels. The room became completely silent. My mom's face turned pale. This time, it wasn't just sadness I saw. It was panic. For the first time since this nightmare began, I think she realized I wasn't bluffing. My dad stared at me without saying a word. He was trying to figure out whether I was serious. I was. After several long seconds, he finally spoke. "There has to be another way," he said quietly. "Can we work this out without getting lawyers involved?" Normally, I would have been willing to negotiate. Not anymore. I looked directly at him. "This isn't my mess," I said. "You created it. You need to fix it. I'm not sacrificing my future because you decided to gamble on Evan." My mom started crying again. She said they didn't have the money. She said they were already struggling financially and that taking this to court would destroy the family. For a brief moment, I almost felt guilty. Then I remembered the sleepless nights, the panic attacks, the fear of starting my adult life buried under debt I never agreed to. I remembered how every conversation had been filled with excuses instead of accountability. The guilt disappeared. I stayed firm. "I'm giving you 2 weeks," I told them. "Come up with a real plan to repay the $80,000. If nothing changes by then, I'll move forward with legal action." I paused to let my words sink in. No more delays. No more excuses. I'm tired of being the only person in this family who's expected to sacrifice everything. My dad's expression changed. His frustration quickly turned into anger. "So you're really willing to tear this family apart over money?" he asked. I couldn't believe he still saw it that way. I took a slow breath before answering. "No," I said. "This family started falling apart the moment you decided my future was worth sacrificing without even asking me." My dad tried one last time to make me feel guilty. He said I was tearing the family apart over money, but I refused to let him turn this around on me. "No," I said firmly. "You put me in this position. I'm just doing what I have to do to protect myself." The conversation went back and forth for a while after that. They kept trying to justify what they had done, and I kept reminding them that none of this should have been my responsibility in the first place. I wasn't asking them for a favor. I was asking them to fix the mess they had created. Eventually, my dad let out a frustrated sigh and said they'd see what they could do. It wasn't an apology. It wasn't a promise. It was the closest thing to an answer I was going to get. He was clearly angry, and my mom was still crying. Normally, seeing my mom like that would have broken my heart, but I didn't have the emotional energy to comfort her anymore. That might sound harsh, but I had reached my limit. For weeks, I'd been carrying the weight of panic, betrayal, and uncertainty while they kept making excuses. This time, I chose myself. I left their house emotionally exhausted, but there was also a small sense of relief. I'd given them every opportunity to make things right. If they refused, then whatever happened next would be because of their choices, not mine. Over the next several days, I waited for my phone to ring. Every time it buzzed, I hoped it would be one of my parents telling me they'd found a solution. Instead, all I received were messages from my mom. She kept asking me to reconsider. She told me how difficult this was for them, how stressed they were, and how worried she was that our family would never recover from this. I understood that she was scared, but I couldn't ignore what had happened just because they were finally feeling the consequences. Each time she texted, my answer stayed the same. "You have 2 weeks. Nothing more. Nothing less." As the deadline got closer, I started preparing for the possibility that they wouldn't do anything at all. I organized every piece of evidence I had collected. I printed copies of bank statements, loan agreements, tuition records, emails, and every document that showed the difference between what my education actually cost and the amount borrowed in my name. I wanted everything organized in case I needed it in court. I also scheduled a consultation with a lawyer. Walking into that office felt surreal. Never in my life had I imagined I'd be discussing legal action against my own parents. The lawyer carefully reviewed the documents, asked questions about how the loans had been handled, and explained what my options might be. Nothing was guaranteed, But hearing that I potentially had legal grounds to challenge what had happened gave me a little hope. At least I wasn't imagining things. My concerns were real. Throughout all of this, my friends and my girlfriend stood by me. They checked in constantly, made sure I was eating, and reminded me to take breaks from obsessing over paperwork. Still, almost everyone asked me the same question. Are you sure you want to do this? It was a fair question. Who actually wants to sue their own parents? I didn't. Not for a second. But I also knew that if I stayed quiet, I'd spend years, maybe decades, paying for a debt that never should have been mine. So every time someone asked, I gave the same answer. I don't have a choice. Eventually, the 2-week deadline arrived. I hadn't received a single real update from my parents. No repayment plan. No proposal. No accountability. Nothing. Part of me wondered if they were simply hoping I'd lose my nerve and give up. But they still didn't understand me. I'd come too far to back down now. That afternoon, I sent my mom one final text. I reminded her that the deadline had arrived and told her that if I didn't hear from them before the end of the day, I'd begin the legal process the following morning. After sending the message, I spent the rest of the evening pacing around my apartment. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, realizing I was about to cross a line that could never be undone. If I filed that lawsuit, there was a good chance my relationship with my parents would never recover. The thought hurt. I felt angry. I felt sad. I was scared. But underneath all of those emotions was something unexpected. Relief. I'd done everything I reasonably could. I'd listened. I'd explained. I'd negotiated. I'd given them multiple chances. Whatever happened next wasn't because I had rushed into it. It was because they had left me no other option. The following morning, my phone buzzed. It was a text from my mom. The message was short. Asterisk, we're working on getting the money together. Please don't do anything yet. We'll talk soon. Asterisk, it wasn't the resolution I'd been hoping for. There were no details. No timeline. No actual plan. But for the first time since all of this began, it sounded like they finally understood I wasn't bluffing. I replied a few minutes later. You have one more week to give me a concrete plan. If you do, I'll hold off on filing. If you're only trying to delay this, I won't hesitate to move forward. After sending the message, there was nothing left for me to do except wait. I hoped they would finally take responsibility and do the right thing. At the same time, I wasn't naive enough to expect a miracle. Either way, I was ready. This wasn't over yet. At least now I knew I wasn't completely powerless anymore. Update 1. After that final exchange with my mom, I found myself stuck in a strange kind of limbo. I was waiting to see whether my parents were genuinely trying to fix the situation or simply buying themselves more time. The uncertainty was exhausting. Every morning, I reached for my phone hoping to see a message from them. You lost the right to call me your brother the night I found you in my bedroom. For the first time, his expression cracked. My dad stepped closer to the gate. We only need 5 minutes. Just 5 minutes. No, you're not getting 5 minutes. You're getting a boundary. I looked him straight in the eye. This gate is your closure. Just then, Claire walked up beside me. She looked absolutely beautiful in her wedding dress, but the expression on her face was sharper than any knife. Robert quietly took his place beside her. Claire didn't say a word. She didn't have to. Simply standing there said enough. My dad immediately tried changing tactics. Claire, he said politely, I think there's been a misunderstanding. I only wanted to see my son on his wedding day. Claire's expression never changed. There is no misunderstanding, she replied. You were told not to come. You came anyway. That isn't love. That's entitlement. Tyler rolled his eyes. So you're really going to let her run your life? I looked at him for a long moment before answering. My life doesn't have room for someone who sleeps with his brother's fiancée and then comes back asking for a paycheck. That one landed. Tyler clenched his jaw. Dad's expression hardened. You really think you're better than us now? Tyler snapped. I don't think it, I answered. I built the proof. Tyler pointed angrily at the gate. Open it. We're family. You want to talk about family? I asked. Try not betraying it. Start there. At that exact moment, another car pulled into the driveway. Monica. She couldn't even park properly because Tyler had blocked part of the entrance. So she drove onto the grass. Of course she did. She climbed out wearing a cocktail dress, already crying. The tears came instantly. Loud. Dramatic. Ryan, she shouted toward the estate. Ryan, please. I just need to talk to you. Claire finally turned toward her. Her voice was calm and precise. You were served with a cease and desist letter 4 days ago. You signed for it. You were warned. The police are already on their way. Monica completely ignored her. Her eyes stayed locked on me. Ryan, she cried. I just need closure. And I need my ring back. You can't keep my ring. I never raised my voice. Monica. Just saying her name cut straight through the crying. Your closure happened 5 years ago. In my bed. With my brother. I paused. The door is closed. The gate is locked. That's the ending. Her face twisted with anger. That ring was mine. I slowly shook my head. No, it was a symbol. And you destroyed what it meant the night you climbed into my bed with him. Tyler looked furious. This is insane, he snapped. I turned to him calmly. No, I said. What's insane is you standing here after everything you did, still acting like you're owed something other than the consequences of your own actions. Monica tried one last time. She sounded desperate now. Ryan, I'm struggling. I cut her off. You need to stop showing up where you're not wanted. Then I looked her straight in the eye. If you need money, ask the man you always wanted. The words hit her immediately. She opened her mouth to respond, but nothing came out. Tyler's face turned bright red. He grabbed the bars of the gate again, as if he could force his way through by sheer anger. Move, he shouted at the guards. Then, unbelievably, he actually tried to climb over the gate. Marcus and the second security guard pulled him back down before he made it over. Instead of backing off, Tyler shoved Marcus hard in the chest. That was a huge mistake. A few moments later, we heard sirens. 2 Portland police cars pulled up within minutes. 4 officers stepped out. Robert met them first and handed over everything we'd prepared. The do not admit list with photos, the written trespass notices, the cease and desist letter, and copies of the threatening messages. Once they'd reviewed everything, the officers approached us. The moment my dad saw the police, he did what he always did. He protected his image. He didn't apologize. He didn't argue. He simply got into his car and drove away as quietly as if he'd never been there. Tyler wasn't nearly that smart. He argued with the officers. He puffed out his chest. He kept repeating that this was family business. The officers warned him twice. He ignored both warnings. When he escalated for a 3rd time, they put him in handcuffs. He was cited for 2nd-degree criminal trespass, disorderly conduct, and interfering with an officer. They walked him to the patrol car and placed him in the back seat. Monica started crying again. I just wanted to talk, she pleaded. I'm not a criminal. The officer handed her a citation for criminal trespass and told her she had one chance to leave before she was arrested as well. She got into her car and drove away. From beginning to end, the entire incident lasted 27 minutes. When it was finally over, I didn't feel shaken. I felt free. I turned away from the gate before any of them could say another word. Claire walked beside me, with Eric and Robert following behind us. Back in the groom's suite, Claire studied my face for a moment. You got what you needed? She asked. I nodded. Yeah. They heard me. That's the end. She smiled once. It's handled. They're gone. Security is resetting the entrance. She glanced at her watch. We're getting married in exactly 23 minutes. I straightened my jacket and smiled. Perfect. Let's get married. The ceremony went exactly as planned. At 3 o'clock sharp, Claire and I became husband and wife. There were about 50 guests. Every single one of them was someone who genuinely loved us and wanted to celebrate with us. After everything that happened at the gate, there wasn't another moment of drama. There was no chaos, no interruptions, just the 2 of us choosing to build a future together. During our first dance, Claire leaned close and whispered, "Any regrets about today?" I smiled. None. 3 days after the wedding, while we were packing for our honeymoon, our attorney officially filed petitions for restraining orders against both Monica and Tyler. Claire had already organized every piece of evidence. The police reports from the wedding. Whether his apology would turn into real action was another question entirely. I wasn't ready to trust anyone's words anymore. From this point on, only actions would matter. Here's your passage rewritten in a more natural, emotional, and human storytelling style while preserving *** all the important details *** and expanding the scenes for a smoother, more engaging narrative. Evan took a long breath before speaking again. I should have asked more questions, he admitted quietly. I shouldn't have just accepted the money. Looking back, I know I should have been more responsible. For a moment, I thought maybe this conversation was finally going somewhere. Then he dropped another bombshell. I don't have any way to pay you back. I stayed silent. He explained that his modeling career still wasn't going anywhere. The occasional gigs barely covered his rent and basic expenses. He wasn't making enough money to save anything, let alone repay $80,000 I can barely take care of myself right now, he said, sounding genuinely defeated. I could hear the frustration in his voice, and part of me actually felt sorry for him. But another part of me was simply exhausted. For weeks, every conversation had ended the same way. Someone admitted things were bad. Someone said they were sorry. And then someone told me there was nothing they could do. I was tired of hearing it. I appreciate you admitting you made a mistake, I finally said. But that doesn't change the fact that I'm the one stuck with the debt. There was silence on the other end of the phone. If you can't pay it back, I continued, then Mom and Dad need to. One way or another, someone has to take responsibility. Evan sighed. I'll talk to them. His voice didn't sound hopeful. It sounded defeated. I could tell he already knew what I knew, that our parents weren't exactly rushing to fix the situation. We ended the conversation on an awkward note. Neither of us really knew what else to say. When the call ended, I just sat there staring at my phone. Instead of feeling better, I felt even more drained. Every time I thought I was getting closer to a solution, another obstacle appeared. It felt like this nightmare just wouldn't end. The next morning, I received an email from my lawyer. It was short. **, are you ready to move forward? Seeing those words made everything feel real. This wasn't just a family argument anymore. I was standing at a crossroads. Either my parents finally accepted responsibility, or I took them to court. Before making that decision, I sent my mom one final message. I reminded her that the deadline expired at the end of the day. I told her that if they couldn't present a real repayment plan by then, I would begin the legal process first thing the following morning. After sending the text, all I could do was wait. Hour after hour passed. My phone stayed silent. As evening approached, I slowly started accepting the reality that I was actually going to sue my own parents. It felt unreal. Never in a million years had I imagined my life ending up here. I kept thinking there had to be another way, but every opportunity I'd given them had led to another excuse. Just when I was about to lose hope completely, my phone buzzed. It was my dad. His message was brief and straight to the point. *, we've managed to gather some money. We can't pay it all at once, but we'll start paying you back in installments. *, that was it. No apology. No acknowledgement of everything they'd put me through. No explanation. Just a repayment plan. It wasn't the ending I'd hoped for. I wanted accountability. I wanted honesty. Instead, all I got was a promise to start making payments. Still, it was something. For the first time since discovering the loan, it felt like they were finally taking me seriously. I replied almost immediately. I'll accept the installment payments, I wrote, but I'll be monitoring them closely. If you miss even one payment, I'll file the lawsuit immediately. A few minutes later, my dad replied with a simple agreement. That was the entire conversation. As strange as it sounds, I finally felt like I had regained a little control over my life. The victory didn't feel satisfying. It felt bittersweet. I'd had to fight for every single step. I'd spent weeks living with constant anxiety, endless arguments, and the heartbreaking realization that the people I trusted most had betrayed me. Even if the money eventually came back, I knew things would never be the same. My relationship with my parents, and probably with Evan too, had been permanently changed. Trust like that doesn't magically come back. Even so, I didn't regret standing up for myself. For the first time in a long while, I felt like I was finally moving forward instead of constantly reacting to someone else's choices. The emotions were complicated. There was relief. There was sadness. There was anger. And, somewhere underneath all of it, there was a small sense of closure. One thing had become absolutely clear. I would never allow anyone, even my own family, to take advantage of me like that again. Whatever happened next, it would be the beginning of a new chapter, and this time I'd be protecting my future. Update 2. After my dad agreed to repay the money in monthly installments, I honestly thought the worst was finally behind me. It wasn't the perfect outcome, but at least it was progress. For the first time in weeks, I allowed myself to believe that maybe we could slowly move past everything that had happened. The first few payments arrived exactly as promised. Each deposit wasn't very large, but every payment gave me hope. I watched my loan balance begin to shrink, little by little, and it felt like I could finally breathe again. For the first time since opening that terrifying email from the bank, I started sleeping through the night. I threw myself back into work. I focused on my internship. I spent more time with friends. I even started imagining that, someday, maybe my family and I could rebuild at least part of the relationship we'd lost. Looking back, I realized I was probably fooling myself. Because, just when things finally seemed to be getting better, everything fell apart again. Without any warning, the payments stopped. There wasn't a phone call. There wasn't a text message. There wasn't even an excuse. 1 month, the payments simply never arrived.